everybody, it's Kathryn from Kathryn on Books, and I'm here with the tag. It's the Christmas Carol tag, and I was tagged by my booktube bestie Kerry-Ann from Woman vs Books. It was originated by Lauren Wade, so go and check out their channels. And without further ado, let me get on with the questions. So I'm going to read these from my phone. Okay, question 1. The Ghost of Christmas Past, a book that was a childhood favourite. Well, got to have the Railway Children. This is my original book. This is Nesbit. My original book. This was published in 1970, but I believe it was already been published 50 years earlier. So it's a really tatty old copy. Also, this would fit in for the film cover, because this was the original Railway Children film cover. And yeah, this is the film I went to see. Now, Jenny Agutter, the actress who was the oldest daughter here, is now the mother in the latest film adaptation. So it has to be that. And if I was to choose another, this has not really got anything on it, but this is my Jayne. I'm trying to get my thing in the right place. I can't, because it's not got a picture on it.
Yeah, we put it
Oh, beautiful deckled edges. Not a childhood favourite as such, but a favourite from the age of 16 when I started. I did this for my O-levels in 1976. So it's been a favourite ever since. This is just a beautiful copy. I'm not holding it up again. Right, question number 2. The Ghost of Christmas Present, a recent book that you think will become one of your all-time favourite books. Well, this has to be The Key by Kathryn Hughes. And I discussed this in one of my reviews and news. And I don't think this gets enough love either. So, you know, I think it's something that is a good read for everybody. The reason why I think this grips my heart, because it's a double timeline, takes place in 1956, 2006, when Sarah stumbles across an old closed down mental health hospital back in the day when they used to have mental health hospitals and asylums. And in 1956, it's going back to when there was a young student nurse there, Ellen Crosby, and it was just like 1976, my first placement as a pre-nurse was in a similar mental health hospital, and it was quite horrendous. It had a big impact on me, on a 16-year-old girl, and this had a big impact on me too. So yeah, this is the answer to that. The Key, Kathryn Hughes. Okay, number 3. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, a book coming out next year that you're most excited about. Well, there's 2. So this is The Eve of Man, the Fletchers, so Giovanna and Tom. This is a YA, dystopian, not generally my sort of book. Loved it, really loved it. And guess what? Book 2 is coming out. So the date book 2 is coming out is on the 30th of April 2020. And I'm also really excited because I've found out recently that it's a trilogy. And book 3 is coming out in May next year. So double excitement there. So 28th of the 5th 2020 is the 3rd in this trilogy. So I am really excited for that. I'm going to be getting hold of NetGalley pretty soon to see, because I read this as an ARC, and then obviously I waited for it to come in paperback. I didn't need the hardback because I'd read the ARC. Lovely. Excited to read those when they come out next year. That is number 3. Now number 4, Bah Humbug. A book that everyone else loves that you can't stand. Well, I won't say that I can't stand. I think that's a bit strong. I would say there's a couple of books here that I didn't think was worth the hype, and I didn't love them like a lot of people did love them. So the first one is The Loney. That's a few years out now. And this is by Andrew Michael Hurley. This takes place in Lancaster, and really it's been sold as a very gothic, atmospheric, haunting novel. And there was a lot of hype about it at the time. Now, I actually didn't find it that haunting. I didn't find it that atmospheric. I did like characters. There's some very good characterisations in it. And I did like his writing. I mean, this was his debut. I did notice in Waterstones this week that he has recently published his second novel, and it's in a beautiful hardback copy. About half the size of this though, not a large hardback, just a smaller size. And so I would give him another try, because I do think the writing is very nice, but I had issues with some of the plot, and I didn't think it was as atmospheric and as gothic as it was portrayed, really. So that's The Loney. Running out of places to put it. And then another one that probably everybody's going to go, boo, boo, bar humbug. Very bar humbug. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Taylor Jenkins Reid. Right, I think this has probably been one of the most hyped books of 2019. And it was this year. It seems to have been out forever. I'm sure it was this year. It came out in 2018. Perhaps I read it perhaps I read it this year then. I think I did. I did a buddy read with Kerry Ann. And, well, I'd not read Taylor Jenkins Reid before. I want to read some more of hers, because people that do like her writing say this is completely different to the other books that she'd written. And obviously since then she's written Daisy Jones and the Six. That must have come out this year. So this was, yeah, the year before. The problem, I had many issues with this. A lot of people love Evelyn as a character. I didn't. I found that there were quite a few issues within this that really irritated me, or were covered. I think the thing is that there were some very important issues in here to do with the riots that went on for gay rights, and termination of pregnancy, and unfaithfulness, infidelity, that sort of thing. And I think it was lightly brushed over for important topics, and I think that's what I had an issue with. I'm looking forward to reading some other stuff of hers. I did quite like the format, but it did drag on a little bit, you know. You think, oh no, not another husband. And the ending disappointed somewhat to me. There was a mystery to be unravelled, and yeah, a bit disappointing, I do have to say. But, you know, you can tell that she's an excellent writer, and you've got to be honest about things. You know, most people loved this, but there are a few of us that didn't like it. Kerry Ann was one of them. David read it. He wasn't. I wanted him to read it in case it was me that was being overcritical. And trying to think of who we buddy read it with as well. I'll look her up and I'll put her down in the cards. I can't remember her name. It's gone from me. And she wasn't over thrilled. So sorry guys. Just my opinion. There are things that I liked about it, but the things that I found were flawed. So, you know, they ask these questions, we've got to be honest about them. But yeah, bar humbug if you loved it. Next, question number 5. An old dependable that you always recommend, Bob Cratchit. Right, okay. I've got that many piles of books here. Crikey. These aren't necessarily old, but I feel that I need to give them a mention, and I've mentioned them before, and I'll keep on mentioning them. So really an old, dependable, but a dependable and a fantastic book that I always want to recommend. And that is The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This was absolutely fantastic, and I think it came into my life at the right time. I read this not long after my mum passed away, and it was a book that, you know, sometimes you feel that a book comes along and it's the right book at the right time, the right place, and I felt that this is what this was. There's a touch of magical realism in it. Lee's mother dies and she feels that she comes back as a bird, and for some reason you could say, well, that's just a metaphor, and there are others with more spiritual beliefs that do believe that, you know, how many times you hear people say that they're thinking of somebody that they've lost and a feather suddenly lands on the shoulder or whatever, and I've had episodes like that as well. But it's beautifully written. It does cover suicide of a parent. It does cover different cultures. She goes over to Taiwan to get to know her maternal grandmother, who she's never met, and beautiful, thought-provoking, really all the feels, all the emotions. And then another one that I recommend that I've done recently as one of my duos is The Bees by Laline Paull. And this had a big impact on me too. So this is the life of Flora, who's number B717. It's very cleverly written. It's looking at her life, her purpose, what happens within the beehive system, and it makes you think how we need to protect the bees. It's somewhat slow in places, but nevertheless I think it's a very well written book. It's very important, and you know, the life of bees and their continuation has a big impact on humans and the human race and its longevity, really. So it's very thought-provoking. I think everybody should read it and look after the bees. I've started putting sugar water out now since I read this, because they get so worn out and you think they're dying, but actually just put some sugar dissolved in some warm water, leave it out for them. I've seen them take it up and restore and fly off. So yeah, that's that one. Next question. Where are we now? Tiny Tim, an underhyped book that you think deserves more love. Right, okay. The Purest Heart of Ailsa Ray by Stephanie Butland. Loved this. I buddy read this with Kerry Ann, and I wasn't expecting it to have such an impact on me that it did. So Ailsa Ray was born with a congenital heart problem. She's waiting for a heart for several years, and she's more or less at last chance. And she loses a boyfriend who's waiting for a transplant. She meets a famous pop star that is waiting for a transplant, and on the surface of it you think, yeah, this is just a lovely, heartwarming woman's fiction. However, I think it's very cleverly written. It's very emotional. It makes you think about heart transplants, the whole idea of transplantation. Really, I think it is coming out. I don't know if it's 2020 or 21 that it's going to be coming out in the UK, that unless you say otherwise, they can use your organs for transplantation. At the moment, you have to have permission. Either you've had to have pre-arranged that that's your wishes if anything happens to you, or then they get the next of kin to sign, say if somebody's in intensive care and you know they're going to turn a machine off. But that's going to be changing because they don't have enough donors. and I certainly don't think they have enough donors from ethnic minority groups, because they've got various different blood types, etc., tissue types that aren't as easy to match. My sister's mother-in-law is waiting for a kidney transplant, and she's Asian, and so there's all sorts of different type matching that needs to go on. So it makes you think about that, and where you feel on it, and how important it is, and just the emotions of what this girl is going through when she thinks she's not going to make it. And also when she does, you know, she does get a new heart, they then feel guilty that they've been able to get something suitable and others haven't. And at the end, it will just have you in tears. There is a letter. I'll just read you this little bit. I've read it before, but I'll have to read it again. Dear stranger, I know I'm supposed to write to your family, but I can't bear to visualise them. The same way I can't imagine what would have happened to my mother if I had died. I hope that when the transplant coordinator passes this letter on to them, they'll understand. You're the one who registered as an organ donor, gave permission for your heart to be taken from you, and so you are the one that saved my life. You did more than save it, in fact. You created it. And it goes on, and you're sobbing by the end of it, and it makes you realise. So yes, that's one that I think is very underrated. And I'll just mention an author, because I really love the work by Helen Fitzgerald. I've read both these. Both these were amazing. This is crime fiction, bit of psychological thrown in there, and they're brilliant. And yet I don't seem to hear much hype around her, and I think you should give her a try. I think she's Australian author. Yeah, so not a book that's undervalued, but an author that I think we need to hear a lot more about. Right, where are we now? We've done Tiny Tim. Right, why it's Christmas Day, hurrah! What's a book that always gets you in the mood for Christmas? Right, so this is a tradition since I met David. The Box of Delights by John Masefield, and there is a TV adaptation of this, I think was filmed in the 80s, something like that. And I think since the 80s, David has watched the TV adaptation every year since, and reads the book every year. Usually starts about the 19th, reading the book about the 19th of November, because it's his birthday on the 16th of December. And I've read it, it's lovely. This one is illustrated by Quentin Blake, so obviously fantastic illustrations in it. Going back to how long ago it was written, it was written originally in 1935, so it was very much forward thinking. It was very much something that sort of had magical realism in it, and all exciting adventure stuff, the daring do, and ahead of its time really. There is a companion novel called The Midnight Children, Midnight Folk, not Midnight Children. I think there is a book called Midnight Children, but Midnight Folk again by John Masefield. But this is a family tradition, and we're about halfway through the series that's on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube, we watch it. It's just lovely. It's great for all the family really. So yeah, family tradition, Box of Delights. Then The Muppet Christmas Carol, your favourite film adaptation of a book. So I've already mentioned The Railway Children. So as I say, actually this is the book cover for the original film. I don't have one for the latest film. I've not seen it. In some ways I don't really want to see it, because I don't want it to spoil all the feels that I had for the original. I've watched it several times. I just loved it. Growing up in the 70s, where there were loads of disused railways that we used to, pack our picnic up, and my sister and I and our friends, and off we went. pretending to be railway children. It was just a magical time. So there's that one. I tried to find, and I can't find it anywhere, my 13 Reasons Why. I have got the film, well, the TV adaptation cover of that. And I actually think the TV adaptation was fantastic and slightly better. I think I gave the book 4 stars and the TV adaptation 5 stars. So that's worth having a watch. And then also the other one, which this is an old cover and not the the film cover, but Sarah Waters' The Little Stranger has recently been made into a film, and not seen it yet actually. Mind you, we live in the back of Beyond in Scarborough. You know, we're having to fight to get a Cineplex. The nearest place you have to go to Beverley or York or Hull. It's awful. So yeah, we're about 10 years behind when we get the films. Ha ha. But yeah, that's another one that's book to film. So that's the questions answered. It now says tag a few people. So I don't know who's done this tag, but I'm going to tag a few girlies. So Emily from Novel Books, I tag you. It sounds a bit like the boys used to play Pokemon, who say, Pikachu, I choose you. So Emily. Nicola from the Girly Girl Bookworm. I love watching her stuff recently. I've watched her for quite a long while, but yeah, it's quite nice now she's had the baby, because she keeps making an appearance. Acacia from Acacia Ives. I don't think she's done this. And then Jen from Remembered Reads. So anybody else that wants to have a go at this, it's the right time of year to do the Christmas Carol tag. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found some new titles you fancy having, or there may be some of your own favourites there. And let me know if you've got anything that's a traditional book that you read every year. And I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.